You have heard me talk about the concepts of nihilism. Maybe it's nihilism. I think I pronounce it nihilism. Tony Katz today. I'm not talking about Big Lebowski style. I'm talking about the idea of nothingness being extolled as a value. We see it in art. We see it in literature. We see it in film. If we take a look at the latest Marvel movies, they're not about anything. They're not about good conquering evil. They're not about the good guy finding a way to make it happen. It is about the messaging. It is about the idea of, look at all these wonderful either gay actors or trans actors that we've hired, or characters that we've added that bring nothing to the film itself. Look at this massive social construct problem that we've solved, but they haven't solved anything. And we see it time and again and again. We see that Disney has failed epically with environmental social governance in investing. It hasn't worked for them. It hasn't worked for anybody. And then I come across this piece over at National Review by Noah Rothman. Media literacy is no antidote to the nihilism of the betrayed generation, which is a very interesting concept, talking about what's happening with media, but to call it nihilism, I thought was worthy of discussion. Noah Rothman joins me right now. He writes over at National Review. He's the author of The Rise of the New Puritans, Fighting Back Against the Progressives' War on Fun. Find that at Amazon.com, wherever fine books are sold. You bring up a story out of California. You bring up a story out of New York, which involves the state trying to tell the rest of us, hey, we know the difference between what's real and what's not, and we're now going to teach you how to make that differentiation for yourself. But you then relate those things, and I'm not in favor of those things, mind you, you relate them to this idea of where younger generations are. So from that perspective, what have New York and California done, and what brought you to this place?
Yeah, so they've committed themselves to teaching at the K through 12 level in state schools, quote unquote media literacy, which is a buzzword that's been around for a long time. It's supposedly designed to communicate to young people, to convey to them how to consume media with not just a skeptical eye, but an apprehension of what media is trying to relate information and what media is attempting to get you to do something, trying to get you to believe something, trying to get you to act in a certain way. It's an instrumental purpose. It's a utilitarian campaign. The problem is that they're attempting to address conditions that maybe they themselves contributed to, but their ideological allies most certainly created the conditions for. You talk to young people today and about media and their conception of the world, and they're extreme skeptics. They don't really believe that much of anything can be known. It's not, and it has very little to do with technological innovations. I think, there'd be an instinct to say, well, you have these AI generated fake images and fake videos, and so can't really blame them. Well, this trend predates those technological innovations. Doesn't predate social media. Surely social media contributes dramatically. But back in 2018, people under the age of 29 were telling Pew pollsters that, quote unquote, most people would try to take advantage of you. Quote, most people can't be trusted. And there's a reason for that, I think. We spent a decade or more teaching young people that there's very little objective truth out there. Subjectivity is all that we can expect. My truth is as valid as anyone else's truth, and it's a truth that is gleaned and discerned from a consultation of your own demographic traits, your accidents of birth. Colleges and universities have been making activism a creditable enterprise for a long time without teaching them what they're supposed to know or what they're acting out for. The activism itself is supposed to be its own virtue, and in part a pursuit of subjective ideals. And we have a media environment that has turned against objectivity in a very public way. The notion here that objectivity is even attainable is in doubt, and a lot of credentialed reporters over the course of the last decade have been retailing this vision of moral clarity, something that should replace the standard of objectivity. Even if that's unattainable, it's a corrupt pursuit because it compels you to lend equal weight and gravity to two different sides of a story when there is at times no rationalization for that. There's good and there's evil, and there are things that reporters are obliged to do for the betterment of society as a whole. So we've been creating these conditions in which the arbiters of truth, the stewards of these institutions that are supposed to promote objective empirical knowledge, have abdicated that responsibility, told young people there's no such thing as objective empirical knowledge, and now we find a whole generation that is listless and desperate for some sort of mooring because they have none. So yes, they've adopted a form of nihilism, the idea that nothing can be known, that nothing is knowable, and therefore nothing is worth protecting or preserving. A lot of them are being drawn now to things like radical Islam in the pursuit of some sort of mooring.
And we're seeing that on social media to the extent that that is actually happening is different. But I want to take it back to this idea of moral clarity really quick before moving forward. Certainly we can see that within today's press in the conversation regarding Israel, they cannot engage the idea that Hamas is a terrorist organization. That statement in and of itself seems an impossibility for many to engage. Certainly the Washington Post has proven this, an inability to really state, hey, these people are just wrong. Even if you've got an issue with Israel, these people are clearly wrong. But we brought up this idea of moral clarity. You're not making the argument that moral clarity doesn't exist, are you?
Well, I'm making the argument that it is not the job of institutions that are supposed to convey point by point, fact by fact analysis of current events. Journalists, it's not their job to discern moral right from wrong when they're on the ground reporting on these things. That is the mission that was divined by reporters like Wes Lowry at CBS News during in 2014, 2015, at the very beginning, the outset of the Black Lives Matter movement. Which would compel reporters to lard up pieces about events on the ground with contextual analysis dating back decades or perhaps even centuries in order to create conditions that don't establish moral clarity, rather that obscure it, that ensure that the reader couldn't judge events on the ground as those events themselves. They had to be incepted by occurrences that occurred generations ago. That is not a pursuit of any sort of objectivity or clarity at all. It is designed to advance a particular political narrative. And I think young people are aware of that, particularly when it comes, and now to bring it back to this media literacy course, Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, was quick to say this is not a campaign to indoctrinate. But Governor Newsom in California located all the conspiracies that bedevil us, from climate change denial to vaccine skepticism to 2020 election skepticism. It all exists on the right, which exposes the political campaign, the utilitarian campaign at work here, the design at the university level, in journalism, and now at governmental levels. And you can forgive kids for picking up on this sort of thing, is to transform these young people into a vanguard.
But that's where I want to take it
militant
from.
Activists for their cause.
That's
and
where
they
I want
resent
to take
being
it
used.
Hold on a second, Noah. That's exactly where I want to take it from. Talking to Noah Rothman of National Review. Check out his latest book, The Rise of the New Puritans, Fighting Back Against Progressives' War on Fun. Get that at Amazon.com or wherever fine books are sold. You are saying that when Kathy Hochul talks about media misinformation and online hate, giving young people the ability to determine digital fact from digital fiction. You talk about Governor Gavin Newsom of California, and you went through that laundry list. See, this is what the political right is doing to us. But you're giving this, it's not tacit, it is this very direct credit to younger generations because they see the difference. They see the issue. And I was curious as to how you came to that. Is this your belief? Is this anecdotal? Is this data-driven? Because we don't often see the younger generations getting credit for knowing, hey, this is a bunch of crap we're seeing over here.
Well, I don't think anybody's out there saying these, people in whom I've invested so much trust, who I like and respect and care for, are actively misleading me, and I resent it. I don't think you're seeing that. Might not see it for some time. What you are seeing are people, young people, who are rejecting the idea of knowability broadly, not attributing that to the people who have misled them just yet. That is a profound psychological betrayal and probably an obstacle. But what they are saying is that, well, I can't really believe you because I can't believe anybody. That's sort of a safer harbor psychologically. But it probably predates, or rather precedes, a broader acknowledgement of the fact that these young people have been turned into a utility by a utilitarian campaign. I mean, it's a modest protest against their misuse to just reject everything broadly. So I'm not signing up to be, a right winger here, but I'm not necessarily on your team either, because nothing can be known and nothing is knowable, and we live in a sea of existential doubt. That's sort of the precursor to a broader rebellion against a campaign that's designed to turn these young people into tools to advance a political cause.
When someone is, whether you want to engage it historically or just engage it anecdotally, when someone feels that, not necessarily that they are lost, that there is nothing to grab onto as a standard, they'll search for anything, as you discussed, and there has been this social media conversation about people pushing towards Islam as something to grab onto, although I don't see it any data on that. But you look at something as you're sharing it and sharing some of the data points, and you're like, there's an opportunity here. There seems to be an opportunity here for that level of mooring. Is this opportunity political? Is this opportunity religious? Is this opportunity educational? Where do you see it?
Well, I wouldn't say the remedy to the misuse and betrayal of young people is to do the exact same thing from the other side. I certainly wouldn't say, well, here's a chance that we have to say, well, everything you've been taught is wrong, and here's why you should hate all these people around you, and adopt this set of precepts, which conflicts with that set of precepts. I don't think that's right. What young people have, the source of the betrayal here is that young people have been not taught how to learn, but rather what to think. And that has become hard to avoid acknowledging, and it is a source of some resentment. Educational experiences at the pre-graduate level, from high school to even undergrad, should be an exercise in learning how to navigate informational environments, which is what this media literacy campaign is supposed to do. But we always knew how to do that. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. The educational experience should be the discovery of information and how to understand information, how to compartmentalize information, how to read information. It is studying how to learn, not coming up with conclusions and working backwards. We abandoned that when we imported the critical theories experiment from the highest level of collegiate academia and imposed it on far lower levels down into the K through 12 area. Theoretical constructs. That's not how you learn. That is how you indoctrinate. You encounter these theoretical constructs after you've got the basics down, after you understand the contours of a debate, of a historical experience, of a scientific process. Only then do you begin to critically deconstruct it, once you've got your hands around the thing. We work backwards. We started from critical deconstruction before we even get the basic facts down. So you have a generation now that has been getting it backwards for 15 years or so, with the understanding that nothing is knowable, nothing can be as concrete, everything can be broken down to its atomic level and deconstructed to the point where it doesn't resemble anything sound or durable. And so, yeah, you have a generation that doesn't understand how to learn. So what these media literacy campaigns are designed to do is to reverse a trend that they can't acknowledge because it comes from their own side, and they can't really address because the institutional obstacles against them, political obstacles, institutional obstacles, just alliance structure obstacles, are too profound. So Democrats have a real problem on their hands, and they acknowledge it. I think this is a sincere, genuine concern on their part. but they have no way to address it because they created the problem themselves.
Yeah, except I would argue that we're the ones who have a problem on our hands. This goes very far beyond the politics and elections, and goes to the very idea of what they would elect to begin with. As I think we could engage to a level historically, when people feel that they have nothing, they'll search for anything, and very often that anything is pretty bad for everyone. That's a conversation for another day. Noah Rothman from National Review, his latest book, The Rise of the New Puritans, Fighting Back Against Progressives' War on Fun, available at Amazon.com, wherever fine books are sold. Noah, thank you. More is coming up. I'm Tony Katz.